Now, the study of genetics is transforming the world of medicine. However, researchers have discovered that enlightening the public to the magic of genomes is proving a little bit more challenging. Many assume the term has something to do with gnomes, apparently. So, can only geniuses understand genes? Anna Middleton is a genetic counsellor and founder of the Socialising Genome project and joins us from Cambridge, as you can see. Very good afternoon to you. Does it matter if us ordinary folk understand what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's quite usual that people don't tend to know an awful lot about the science, but that doesn't really matter. What we've been looking at is what people already know, and I found that we can have quite sophisticated conversations about DNA, genes, genetics, but people just don't use those terms. But what we've been trying to do is socialise genomics, so turn it from an antisocial concept to a social one so that people can have more conversations about it.
But why do we need to? Just explain to us why we should understand them.
Well, genetic technology is now being mainstreamed across healthcare settings. So genetic testing used to be just in specialist services like clinical genetics, and now you can find it in dermatology, ENT, obstetrics, paediatrics, cardiology. It really is going across a healthcare setting. And you might think, well, I'm not using healthcare settings at the moment, so it's not relevant. But I bet your relatives are. People that we're biologically related to will be learning information that actually will be relevant to all of us. So genetics is really very much a family affair. It's a social concept, and there's an urgent need to upskill all of us in what it can do for us and what we can learn from it.
So are you saying that we need to understand the difference between genes, DNA, genomics, because it impacts on our future health? My kids need to know about my genes, my DNA, so they can understand what may come down the generations?
Well, there's some basic concepts like things run in families, things can be inherited, we are all at risk of something, and that genes can tell us about our past, present and future health. But also genes can tell us about how we respond to medications. They can help to tell doctors about how to tailor-make treatments to us and to what we need. And so it is something that even if we're not currently using health services, that if our relatives are, and they have some level of genetic testing, that the information that they may get may also be relevant to us too. So it's something that a little bit more now, and understanding how things are relevant to us as individuals.
But isn't it quite expensive, the science behind all of this? I mean, if I wanted a full kind of gene analysis, how much would that cost, and what actually am I going to get from it? Is it something the NHS would pay for?
Well, there's a new project called the 100,000 Genomes Project, which means that 70,000 or so people will get the opportunity to have 20,000 or so genes looked at. And that is aiming to offer information about current conditions that they have, and also about how they might respond to medications. The costs are coming down all the time, and it is now in the NHS, and it is now in health services across the world.
Just explain to us then, in the most unsciencey way you possibly can, the difference between these things: genes, DNA, genomics.
Well, genomics is the study of all of our genes, so the 20,000 or so genes that we have, and the DNA and the bits between them. And what you might find out from that is whether you're predisposed to getting a condition in the future, and whether any conditions that you have at the moment have an inherited component to them. And it's all really about looking at the DNA and what's in it. When I did a set of focus groups with members of the public and asked them, you know, what do they know about DNA and genetics, they've often heard of the term DNA, but they think it's something to do with solving crimes, identifying bodies, that sort of thing. They've often heard of genes and genetics, and they think that's things to do with families, which is right. But many of them have not heard of genomics, and will take the word quite literally and say, genomics, gnomes, is it something to do with gnomes and economics maybe? Which was really interesting. And so what I've done with that information is take the themes that we've got from the focus groups, talk to my partner from the advertising industry, Julian Borrer, and he's added razzmatazz to those themes, and we've created 6 little animations that basically are used as a conversation starter for genomics. So each animation has got a scientific core at the heart of it, but it's got an overlaid with metaphors, memes, understandings, things that lay people might really relate to. And it's a research project really to find out whether these do indeed start a conversation, whether they are actually useful hooks to help people engage with a very complicated scientific subject. And we've got a little website called genetube.org, and what we're asking is people look at the films, give us their feedback and tell us if they do indeed help to start a conversation. They may not, and that's what we want to find out.
OK, we'll find out, won't we? Anna Middleton, good to talk to you. Thank you.